Hi out there, it's me, Katie Liz again. Things are a little better. Had a good weekend. Got a lot of stuff done. I feel good about that. And today I'm here to talk about habits like I promised that I would do before. Specifically the habits that I have of picking at my fingers and picking at my lips. And I do have a couple of cold sores that I've developed over the weekend, partially because of the picking and partially because of the stress of the last couple of weeks. But I wanted to start by talking about what got me interested in neuroplasticity and mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy, which are three things that I have been reading about and learning about since before I started this YouTube channel. A little background is that I have a grandmother that has passed on now who had dementia. We visited her a lot. We took her for walks. We played games. We brought her to church. We went to every single social function that they had at that facility, but it didn't make any difference. She could not remember that we had visited her. And the ultimate theme at the end of her life was that we had abandoned her. And she spent many of her final days depressed and sad. And it was difficult to see. When we were at her funeral, a lot of people got up and talked about what a people person she was. And I remember her as being really family oriented. And those are wonderful things. But when her mind started to go, because her value was all wrapped up in her closeness to the people around her when they weren't there, she had nothing to rely on. But she did, however, have some habits that stuck with her. Even when her dementia took over, she put foundation on every day. She had to have pantyhose or she felt naked. And the thing that distressed her the most were these chin hairs that she had. We could not get the people that worked at the facility to understand that they needed to clip these chin hairs because she would get so aggravated if she could feel those. I began after her death to question the practices of my own life and where the habits that I've been developing are leading me. Would I be as dependent as she is on the people around me if I were in the same situation, or would I be able to find peace alone with my God in that room with no one that I loved around me? What does the Bible say about our minds? And what can be established even after our memory is gone? I was drawn to Dr. Jeffery Schwartz. He wrote a book called You Are Not Your Brain. And I haven't read the book. I have watched some YouTube videos. One is 40 to 50 minutes long, and I'll put the link below where he goes into great detail about the parts of the mind and how they work together to form habits, and the habit loop and dopamine, the reward center, and how those things all work together and how you can interrupt that habit loop. And he had a 4-step method: relabel, reframe, refocus, and revalue. And in the relabel reframe portion, he says, the brain puts out the call and the mind decides whether to listen. And so when you're relabeling and reframe, you have a thought or a feeling that enters in, and you need to decide if this is a cognitive distortion, if you need to figure out if this is reality versus just a feeling, and reframe it with the help of what he calls your wise advocate. This speaks to me as a Christian because I have a wise advocate, which is the Holy Spirit. What he says is that going through this process, what you end up doing is wiring the wise advocate into your habit loop. And I've had this information for quite some time, but I have been unable to make the process of relabel, reframe, refocus, by the way, is to find something constructive to do, and to revalue, I've been unable to do these things consistently because I need a hard stop. Mel Robbins. I will post a link to the interview that they did with her on the YouTube channel Video Advice. And she talks about the 5-second rule, which is not, you have 5 seconds to pick up food off of the floor before it's hopelessly contaminated. It is the counting back, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and how it helped her overcome the habit of hitting her snooze button every morning. But what jumped out at me at that video was how she said that it's been proven that counting back 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 awakens your prefrontal cortex, which breaks the habit loop. It makes you become mindful. And when you hit 1, it prompts you into action. I found, amazingly, that this habit that I have of picking my fingers and picking my lips can actually turn into a wonderful blessing to help me to form the habits that I had decided that I wanted to form at the time that I was doing this research about neuroplasticity after my grandmother passed away. Let me explain. Romans 12:2 says to be transformed by the renewing of your mind, which is really forward thinking. This day and age, people say that the Bible is irrelevant. It's old. It doesn't matter today. But we used to think that our minds were fixed. We used to think that if someone had a stroke and they lost the ability to use their hand, they'd never get that back again. We used to think that children were able to develop their brains, but once you got past a certain age, you just can't teach an old dog new tricks. But the Bible has said all along that you can be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The Bible has actually spoken about neuroplasticity in a way. But another verse in that chapter, Romans chapter 12, is what I had gotten for my goals of habits that I wanted to form. So that if down the road I lost my memory as my grandma had lost her memory, that I wouldn't be in the position that she was in. The 3 things were, in verse 12, it says, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, and instant in prayer. And what I have discovered is that when I pick my fingers, I immediately notice and I say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awaken my prefrontal cortex, break the habit loop, and focus my attention on Jeffery Schwartz's method of wiring my wise advocate, the Holy Spirit, into my habit loop. And focusing on these 3 things, Romans 12:12. Rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, instant in prayer. And because I pick my fingers many, many, many times a day, it will wire me in to do those 3 things many, many times a day. And I can see how it would be a life changer. And for future videos, I'm going to have more information. I'm currently reading a book that was recommended by Pickup Lines called The Power of Habit. And he talks about how there are keystone habits. I have a hunch that the finger picking that I have going on is a keystone habit for me. And I know that prayer would be a keystone habit for me. If I could be in the habit of rejoicing, being patient, and instant in prayer as often as I pick my nails, I can't even imagine the change that will come through in my life. I'm looking forward to what this week has to offer for me. I'm excited. I'm excited to see the changes happening in this room and to have things changing inside of me as well. And I originally thought I was going to be finding all of this valuable information on YouTube, which I have. But improve with YouTube, I think, is a little bit more than what I'm finding and learning. Because although I only have a few people that watch these videos, it's something that holds me accountable. When I get up in the morning, my thoughts turn to the room and what I could do today. And it motivates me. And I'm grateful for it. And I'm looking forward to see how far it goes.